Hello and welcome back to the show. My name is Claire Lee and I'll be your host for this podcast. On this week's episode, I'll be remotely sitting down with Coach Watson and talking about his new position as the head coach and what this year's football season is going to look like with new guidelines and adaptations. So get ready because this is Lambert in real time. Hello, Lambert Longers. My name is Claire Lee, and I'll be your host for this podcast. Welcome back to the second episode of the podcast. I'm really excited to introduce you to our next guest, who is the head coach of Lambert's most celebrated fall sport, Coach Watson.
Hey, how you doing today? Thanks for having me. So, been looking forward to this.
Yeah, of course. Welcome to the show. I'm really excited to talk to you today about everything that your team has done over the summer and what your team will do during this season. So, Lambert takes a lot of pride in our football team, and being the new head coach takes a lot of passion. You've been involved in football in some way for most of your life, and could you tell us more about that and how you got involved in football and your journey as a coach?
Yeah, I started playing football when I was 9 years old, and that was back in 1985. And, I played coming up in the little leagues, the parks and the recs, and from there I went to middle school, and from there to high school, and was very fortunate to receive a scholarship to play football at Mississippi State University out in Starkville, Mississippi. I had a great career there, had a blast, and after that, I had the opportunity to go play in the National Football League, which most people call the NFL. I got to go with the Tennessee Titans for a little while, and after that was over with, my playing days was over with. I had to just develop a love and a passion for the game of football that it had done so much for me and had helped me in my life get to where I was at, that I wanted to stay a part of it. And so I became a high school football coach, and I've been high school coach for 19 years. I started at the bottom of the pole. I was a position coach for a long time, and then I worked my way up to a offensive coordinator and a special teams coordinator, and now I'm become a head coach. It has given me a lot. It has taught me a lot, and I'm grateful for the game of football, and I try to take football and tie it to my life experiences and teach the young men that I've coached and that I'm going to continue to coach in the future about the great game of football. So I'm very passionate about football. I love football. Football is who I am, and it's who my family is, and we're proud of that.
It's really incredible to hear that you've been able to create a community and environment around you to support your dreams and aspirations to become a football player or a football coach throughout your years. So, being the new head coach for Lambert football must be really exciting for you. It does entail a lot of new experiences and a handful of difficulties, so I was wondering how you've been so far with your new position.
It has been difficult, and it's been unique. My first day to start on the job at Lambert High School as the head football coach was set to be March the 16th, which was the day that the pandemic shut everybody down across the nation in schools. So, we've done things that nobody's ever done before, not just us. High schools all across the state and all across the country, I'm sure, did it. We go back to the 1st of April after spring break. We started meeting virtually, football-wise, with the players and the coaches. We would have offensive meetings, defensive meetings, individual meetings, team meetings. So that was very difficult because I brought 5 new coaches with me to Lambert, and some of my players had never met any of my coaches. Some of my coaches had never met the players, and there was players, me as the head coach, that was talking to our team through the computer screen. There was players that I didn't know, and they didn't know me. So it was kind of difficult to build relationships. But I tell you, the guys we got 104 players out for football. The guys that we got out, they're resilient. They didn't flinch. They've done everything I've asked them to do. And, now we moved into, we're actually getting to practice now with pads on and actually football. So, the guys show up every morning, they work hard, and, man, I'm glad I'm a part of it.
I'm glad to hear that you guys have been working on your year and making sure that everyone is able to participate and have fun during the year, even though sometimes it does get a little scary. During your time as a Lambert head coach, you've used the phrase One Lambert in order to unite everyone together, and especially during this time, it can be very useful. So I was wondering what you exactly meant by that.
Well, yeah, that is something that I've carried with me, and it has, it's kind of stuck. But, the whole saying is one Lambert, one community, one family. That's kind of what I believe. And it's just simply this, that one one Lambert means everybody's all in. The administrators are in, the student body's in, the players in, the athletic trainers in, the family members in. It's one Lambert. That's what we're trying to make about it. Make it about that no individual, whether it be a coach or a player, is bigger than the team. And we just try to get the guys to one Lambert, represent Lambert High School to the best of your ability. And it's been good so far. The kids really like it. I think the community's bought into it. So it's something I always do everywhere I go, is trying to start something like that. But it's been good so far.
I find your community energy really inspiring and motivating to unite us during these times of separation through digital or physical communication. I hope everyone got to know Coach Watson a little bit more, and we're going to be right back after this break. Welcome to the break. I'm here to quickly tell you about our Instagram at LHS Realtime. We post all of our guests on there and have updates on the next episode. There's also a link in the bio that you can fill out, which is a form in order to suggest a topic or a guest to talk about on our show. So go check it out and maybe give us a follow. Thanks. Now let's go back to the conversation. Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast. We're going to discuss a little bit more about what's going on behind the scenes on the Lambert football team. So the beginning of football season has been very influential to some major activities at school, such as pep rallies, spirit weeks, homecoming, and many more. Because of these new precautions at school, the football season has been pushed back 2 weeks. So how's that affected your team and the outlook on this year's football season?
Well, when we first got started actually get back together to come out of quarantine, it was June the 8th, I believe, was the correct date. And that was small group settings. We could only have 20 individuals in a group, and in that 20, the coaches had to be included as well. So, I think we went through 3 weeks of just 20 people involved in each group. And, we would start at 7 o'clock in the morning, another group would come at 8, and so forth and so forth. And it was long days. And then the next thing you know, a couple of weeks later, they moved it up to 25 individuals. And so we were able to do a little bit more. And then, we came back from 4th of July week, and they gave us up to 50 individuals in a group. So that's really when we was able to start building our football team from an offense and a defensive point of view. Then on August the 1st, they gave us the clearance to put everybody together and prepare a football team to play. So it's been challenging, but again, the coaches have persevered. The players have done everything we asked, and it was different and it was hard. But when they come out and said they was pushing the season back 2 weeks, I was kind of disappointed. Our kids were kind of disappointed because we felt like we'd been putting in a lot of work. But then, I slept on it. I reflected on it. And I said, I had coaches that didn't know players and players that didn't know coaches that had never met in person. So the more I thought about it, the less angry or upset I became. And I shared with our coaching staff and I shared with our players that this 2 weeks was not going to do anything but help us. And so we feel very fortunate and very grateful for the GHSA pushing the season back 2 weeks, because that just gives us more time to become one Lambert.
I'm glad to hear that you guys are cherishing this time instead of staying in disappointment, and realize that you guys are taking safety precautions. So in terms of that, football is very much a contact sport, and our first priority right now is to maintain social distancing. So what has your team done in order to honor that?
Yeah, there's, in the game of football and most any team sports activity, no matter what sport it is, it's going to be very hard to social distance them. But, the things that we try to do is, we only allow so many people in the locker room at a time to get dressed for practice. We kind of dress in waves, and we do the same thing dressing back in. We actually clean our footballs and our practice equipment in between segments at practice. And then another thing I think that we do very, very well is we are practicing in small, quick segments. The same kids are not side by side closer than 6 foot for longer than 14 minutes at any given time in our practice. So it is still difficult. There's no doubt about it, but we're having to make the requirements that the GHSA has placed upon us and that our school system has placed upon us. But, we're just thankful that we have an opportunity to play this great game. But at the end of the day, I don't know that is it ever going to be preventable not for somebody not to get the virus? I do not know the answer to that question. But, at Lambert High School, we follow the rules and we do everything we can in our power to keep the coaches and the players safe.
Yeah, I think it's really important that student and staff safety come first before having fun or anything else that for leisure. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are taking extra precautions to make sure that your students are staying safe. So you mentioned earlier that you've been a coach for almost 19 years, which is incredible. I mean, it's longer than I've ever been alive. So I was wondering how this year compared to other years in terms of how you felt about it, the environment, and just anything else that you noticed that was slightly different.
I've had a very successful career as an assistant coach. The last 5 years, I was at Lowndes High School down in South Georgia, where I think my senior class that graduated last year, I think they had a record of like 45-9. That's what it was over a 4-year career. The culture where I'm used to being to here was on 2 different levels. When I got here in the course of the last months, I mean, we battled the culture a little bit. I'm not going to make no mistake about it, but I really feel like the football program, the players are starting to buy in to the culture that I want. Another thing that kind of sticks out is the physicality wasn't there. You alluded to it a while ago that football was a physical contact game, and it is. First couple of days out, I didn't feel like our football team was as physical as we needed to be to compete in football games. But from day 11 to day 1, it is like night and day the physicality and culture that we're doing. So they're buying in what we're selling. They're buying, and we're just gonna keep putting it to them, and hopefully they'll continue to buy into it.
One thing I'm really interested in seeing your perspective on is the football games this year, because between the teams, there's probably over 200 players, and in this football stadium, there's probably over hundreds of people watching the game. So how do you think that is going to play out in terms of how football games will work during the season?
Well, I think that, the GHSA has left it up to the counties. And then to my knowledge, at the time when we're doing this podcast, I have not heard either way, good or bad. But I think the last rumor I did hear from people above my head was that we were going forward. We were going to have our people at the games. And, we was going to try to do, X, Y, and Z to maybe prevent some stuff. But here at Lambert High School in our county wants to have athletics. We want to have football Friday nights for sure. And, as far as like pep rallies go before big games, and I think those things are still yet to be determined. But all I can tell you is that some of those things are not in my control. Only thing I'm in control of is the football program. And I can tell you this, if they say we can play, the Lambert Longhorns football players and coaches will be there on time.
Yeah, I completely understand. Right now, everything is not concrete and kind of confusing. So I hope that within the future, when everything gets better and everyone's healthy, we can go full out on these football events. So for my last question, I was just wondering what you noted throughout this year and throughout the nation on how high school football is going to change and how it will stay the same.
I think it's definitely going to be a challenging year for all programs across the country. States have delayed it, but a lot of the southern states are still planning on playing. But I just think that you're going to have some depth on your football team. There's rules and guidelines and procedures in place that, if a coach or a player gets the coronavirus, that, X, Y, and Z has got to happen. And that player or a couple players or that coach go home and miss some time. 10 days is what they're saying. And so I think that this year versus my last 18 years I think you'll get to see a different variety of players on the field. There's going to be some guys that are asked to get playing time when the game's on the line that in a normal year they would not get to play, because the best player plays or whatnot. But I think that's going to be big. And then I am worried about the atmosphere with the cheerleaders and with the band members and the fans. And that is very concerning to me, because I think that each and every player and band member and cheerleader member and parents, I think they all should get a chance, if they're willing to sacrifice to go play football or go do whatever it is, that they need to get the best experience from it.
I think for the most of us, we just want to have a good time in high school and have the best experiences that we're able to have. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are working towards a safe and fun season of football. So thank you so much, Coach Watson, for coming on and telling us all the insider things that's happening to your team and for the season of football.
Look, thank you so much. It was a wonderful time I got to spend with you. You asked me some great questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you again for being a guest on the show. If you want to keep up with the Lambert football team, you can check out their website on Lambert Football. And if you want to keep up with Lambert in real time and listen to more episodes, you can check us out on Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you on the next one.
Hook 'em
Hook 'em.
on.